Yes, indeed. Welcome into another episode of Total Hockey Now here on the Total Hockey Now YouTube channel. That over there is at Fuzzy Chris 91, Christopher Merez. I am at Pucking Thoughts, Adam Bernard. We are a defensive pairing today. We may be joined in progress by at Ant Rivera 86, currently on baby duty. Yeah, might be a crowd if we allowed Nolan on. So I don't know. Maybe he could start filling in for Dad next season.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Get him, start him early. That's it. You just got to show up. Can't be worse than whatever I put here. So you just sit there and look good. Listen, it can't be worse than whatever down the middle backhand pass Mitch Marner is doing in a playoff game. So, why not? Send it.
We will be talking a little Mitch Marner later. Maybe about a half hour ago, I got a hankering for a Danish. I don't know where that came from. Just wanted to point that out. That was not ideal for Canada in the World Championships, Mr. Fuzzy Chris.
It was not. No, Canada loses the quarterfinals to Denmark. I got to watch that. It's been quite a week for teams blowing leads. It doesn't matter what sport it is. Just seems like if you have a lead, it's not safe. You take the foot off the gas. But good for the folks of Denmark. It's real unfortunate that Nikolai Ehlers scores the game tying goal, which would have never happened if the Winnipeg Jets had won. But alas, here we are. So
that'll happen. That's called the butterfly effect, I believe, where you know how that works. Eric Doucette checking in. Hey guys, saying hey guys, as always a pleasure to have him here. We got a lot to get to today. We'll talk about tonight's game 2 between the Panthers and the Panthers and the Hurricanes. Definitely not the Senators. And then we'll talk about the you mentioned collapses and comebacks. We'll talk about what happened in Dallas last night and look ahead to game 2. Updated Conn Smythe odds, and you mentioned Mitch Marner. We'll take a look at see where his next stop is going to be. Some unofficial odds came out for that. We can certainly analyze that. But without further ado, I mean, let's not waste any time here. Let's get to our Stanley Cup bracket here. And there you see, since the last time we've been on the air, we had a week off last week. I was in Disneyland with the family for a few days and then on the beach for a couple of days. But we have our final 4. Dallas up 1-0, Florida up 1-0 in their series. And excited to talk about game 2 here. When we look at the series game 2 odds, currently the Panthers on the money line -135, Panthers +114. See some of the series correct scores there. And when we going back to game 1, Carolina really didn't. Florida had control of that game throughout. That was clear. Carolina, I'm not going to say Florida beat the doors off them, but there was no real doubt about who was going to win. Maybe Florida's riding that game 7 or road victory momentum, but a lot of people think Carolina is going to bounce back tonight. I certainly feel that way. I'm not sure where you stand, but what were your thoughts on game 1 before we get to game 2?
The Florida Panthers are defending Stanley Cup champions for a reason. They demonstrated exactly why they are as good as they are. And this is now, listen, if you want to talk about underperforming, the Carolina Hurricanes, when they get to this point, they seem like they don't want to win anymore. They have now lost 13 consecutive games in the Eastern Conference Finals, which is a concern. That's just not good. So if we talk about curses, here's one. Devils may have to get we need some demon exorcism going on here, but I do still believe that Carolina has the tool set to get it done, but they have to come out of the gate strong. I guess they played poorly. Like you said, Florida had control of that game from start to finish. I don't think Florida played poorly. I just don't think they did enough to win. This is a team that they need everybody cooking at once, right? Florida didn't necessarily get much. Sam Reinhart was relatively quiet. Matthew Tkachuk was relatively quiet as well, but their depth came out and contributed, which is what you need at this point of the year. So Carolina doesn't really have, I wouldn't say any like bona fide superstars. They got a lot of great players. Defensively, they're good. Freddie Anderson has been very consistent. But I feel like this is their first, I would say, real test, right? Like, I'm not going to disrespect the New Jersey Devils that much. And, I mean, the Washington Capitals were the best team in the East. So I do think Carolina can take it tonight, though. I can't imagine them going down, 2-0 with both games at home. Every game at this point is a must win, so we're not going to use that term. But it is critical that they come out with some urgency and get traffic in front of Sergei Bobrovsky. They bumped him a lot. They got into his face. They made life extremely difficult, and that's not a bad game plan. You have to go to the net. You have to make life difficult for goalies. I expect them to repeat the same thing. Maybe they'll get some puck luck this time.
Two things I want to touch on that you spoke about there. First, about Bobrovsky and them getting traffic to the net, bumping him. Bobrovsky, maybe not to the level it was 2 years ago in the conference finals when he was stopping BBs, but he's got that look about them. He's shown flashes of like, okay, Bobrovsky's going to be that goalie tonight where, you'll be lucky to get a second one on him if you even get one. So he's shown flashes of that. He's been playing well. So yeah, that's the way to, get around that. Like, okay, he's comfortable. He's seeing the puck well. Let's not let him see the puck so well. Let's move him around a little bit there. It's the way the Hurricanes are built. So that's one thing I wanted to touch on. The other thing, too, and I heard Jason Gregor say this. He's an afternoon host up in Edmonton there on Sport 1440. Like you said, must-win game. You don't like to throw that term around a lot. If Florida goes home up 2-0, it's over. It may not be a sweep. It may not be 5 games, but there's no way Carolina's beating Florida 4 out of 6 if they go down 0-2, especially losing the first 2 at home. So, yes, I think you're going to get a much better effort out of Carolina tonight, a little bit of a tighter effort. For me, in terms of picks for the game here, looking at tonight, I think there's a couple of things. First of all, I think the Hurricanes to win in regulation at plus 110. The money line's already up to minus 135 if you want to go safer that way. I think they can get business taken care of, and that in regulation and even the series up going back to sunrise. The other thing I'll say, too, is I think that they finished the first period with a first goal lead. So if you want to take them, minus half a puck at plus 154, I think that's smart, too, because, again, if Florida is allowed to come out and start strong, that's not good. Carolina has to take control of this game early and let Florida know, like, we're in for a series here and we're not letting you take control and, steamroll us.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't know how I took yesterday. I took the under 1.5 in the goals between Edmonton and Dallas. That did not end well for me. I don't know if any team's going to have the lead. If I'm Carolina and I get out of that first period and it's 0-0, that's fine. I don't expect this game to be a very high scoring affair. I don't believe any team is going to give each other the opportunity to kind of burn them, right? I don't think we see a ton of power plays either. I think we see a very traditional one of those, call it boring. That's what a lot of Carolina's games have been, boring, but I mean, they are here, right? So the recipe works, but I expect this to be a tight affair, and you're going to wait for your chances and you're going to get it. And Rob Brendamore's team is coached exactly like that, right? It's all about defensive structure. It's all about being, pressure on the puck, make Florida create turnovers, right? Force them to try to get that puck out. Because if you're going to give them the time and the space, they are going to take it. So I would probably do. I have also no problem. I can't take the in 60 regulation if I think this one is close. Because these games could start hitting the overtime pretty consistently now. But I will swallow up to like 135 for the Hurricanes. That I think is okay.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's a safer way to go. I think when you look at, just the pace of the game, too, I agree. I think you're going to get more of a slow defensive. I don't think that you're going to see a lot of stupid penalties tonight. Because, I mean, if you're Carolina, that's the way you're going to beat Florida. Because one of the questions that was asked in the chat was, isn't Carolina a better team? I think Florida is a better team. It's just Carolina is built and plays a style that's able to hang with the top teams and shut down those top teams. So better team, no. But can they beat the Panthers in a 7-game series? Absolutely. Listen, we both are on Hurricanes in 7. There's no one game is not shaking me off of that.
No, that doesn't change for me. Carolina, same thing. Carolina's, I wouldn't say they're a better team, but the structure is there. You cannot be a better team against the defending champions, right? Like, they're here. They've done it, and we've seen all the pieces that they add, all that, like their puzzle looks real complete at this point, right? Like it's well built. Now it's a question of just getting it done, right? You got to go out there and you got to execute and you got to finish the job. So we'll see if Carolina can hang around, see if they can, push the envelope a little bit there. If you were like Adam and I, do you believe that Carolina does win this series? Then, I mean, you can take the current series odds, right? Plus 200, you get a little bit of a discount there. Why not?
I mean, it's still plus 475 if you think it's going the distance. And that's the thing. If you think Carolina's going to win, it's not happening in 5. They're not going to win the next 4. The ship, I don't want to say it's sailed on Carolina in 6 yet, but that you're going to get both games down in Florida, or at least one of those. It depends on how game 2 goes. But yeah, Carolina in 7 is safe. Ant's on the Panthers. He said them in 7. That's still a plus 500. If I had to take Florida, I would. Vegas is saying Florida in 6 is the most likely outcome right now, and then actually Florida in 5, which I think is a slight amount of disrespect and overreaction off of game 1. I don't think the Panthers are going to take it in 5, even though they are the defending champs and just built well from top to bottom.
Yeah, I agree. That's too. I mean, look, I said I'm comfortable with Carolina's money line and the under. So this has all the makings of a 6-5 Panthers win. Like that's do what you wish with that information. That's how this goes, right?
With the goal coming with 1.3 seconds left on the clock or something crazy like that, because that's been happening in the playoffs too there. So there we go. I like the Hurricanes in regulation at plus money, plus 110, and also Carolina to cover the half a puck in first period at plus 154. Chris very much on the under here and on the Hurricanes money line.
Hey, listen, someone's got to be right, and I'm hoping it's me.
I mean, hoping we're pretty much on the same side here, except on the total. So hopefully a good night for us as we try and keep our Carolina and 7 alive. Because like we said, if it's Florida 2-0 going home, now all of a sudden Florida in 5 is looking a lot more realistic. So there we go. And now last night we saw the Stars and the Oilers. And through the first 2 periods, it looked like, wow, here's Edmonton. They're just a freight train. They don't stop. They keep going. Ever since game 3 in Edmonton, they just beat everybody. The one game they lost to Vegas, Vegas had to get that goal with almost no time left. And I don't know, maybe they ate their Wheaties in the second intermission, or I don't know what Peter DeBoer did. But Dallas comes out, 5 third period goals. One of them an empty netter, but still, just complete and utter domination of the period. And it's going to be interesting to see how game 2 goes tomorrow. But what do you think happened there in that second intermission to give Dallas the boost they needed to get back in the game here?
Well,
series.
Listen, there's a lot of times you could blame Stuart Skinner, which is pretty easy to do considering the way he has played in the playoffs. That was not his fault. But you can blame Corey Perry and Evander Kane. Those are 2 brutal penalties. Like, I can live with Kulak's penalty-ish at the end of the period. You come out, you give up a goal, and you're like, man, that's unfortunate. And then what happens? Perry takes one, power play goal. You're like, okay, we've learned our lesson, right? No, Evander Kane comes out, high sticking penalty, which it was a high stick, by the way. And then they score again. And you're just like, at some point, you have to understand how to win. And the Oilers, for whatever reason, like to shoot themselves in the foot. They were on the other side of that for most of the first round against LA. Like, they knew that once they got to the third period, they could come back, they could push the envelope, they can win games. But the Oilers just played probably the worst road third period I've seen in a long time, because you have all the momentum you need. You've done your job. You've scored goals. You have the lead, right? I mean, McDavid was cooking. He made Thomas Harley look terribly defensively in that first period when he just went around him. And then Leon Draisaitl just comes out, absolute ripper of a shot. Evan Bouchard, we know defensively that's a project, but scores a goal. You got all these things working for you. And then you come out in the third period, make a series of unfortunate decisions, and now you're down 1-0 in the series. So feels like this was a missed opportunity for Edmonton. The good news is that they have the 2 best players in the world, so that gives them an edge at every stance. And the last thing you want to do is get McDavid and Draisaitl like angry kind of thing, because when they turn on the Jets, like, good luck slowing them down. But that was, if I'm Dallas, yes, I won. but I gotta play 60 minutes of hockey. Like we cannot come out with that kind of effort and expect that you'll be able to come back. And fun stat over on the Twitter machine. So there are two versions of Stuart Skinner. It's either perfection or absolutely terrible. There is no middle. So either he does not give up a goal, or his save percentage is like below 850. There is no middle for him. So if you score one, if you're the Dallas Stars, you score one, good chance you're going to score a whole bunch more. Keep putting the puck at the net, keep generating traffic, keep going to the dirty areas. They have a ton of depth, man. So I mean, we had said, we both agree with this. I think it's Dallas in 6, and so far they have proven that they can maintain that. But if I'm Edmonton, man, you cannot give Dallas chances, man. You have to suffocate them when you have, and you got to make better choices.
It's almost like the Stars, the Oilers, in terms of like, hey, we're gonna just come back in the third period, and we're past the point in the playoffs where like you can get away with that. Like the Kings are a very good team, but they weren't in the top tier of cup contenders. So Edmonton, team that's been down this road plenty, they know playoff hockey. They were able to, play loose and fast with the Kings, and that didn't burn them. They found their footing and won 4 in a row. And then, like we said, the Vegas series, was 5, but let's face it, that could have very easily been a 4-game sweep there too. Yeah, it's a completely, for both teams, you got to play a complete game. Edmonton's got to, Leon Draisaitl started to, he started to break out in that game. He looked real strong. That first goal was quite the snipe. So if he's going, like you said, him and McDavid pissed off. All the signs point to Edmonton in game 2. But call me crazy, I almost think Dallas is going to go back with a 2-0 series lead here. I mean, I would lean Stars money line. I think you're also going to get, or I think you're going to get an under game. It's the 6.5 is the total right now. I think you're going to get more of that kind of low scoring game and style. But unlike with the Hurricanes, where if they go back 0-2, I think the series is over. Edmonton, I think, is still very alive if they go down 0-2 to Dallas. I mean, I kind of thought Dallas would get both games here. I really think this is going to be a home team wins every game until game 6 kind of situation for me. Edmonton didn't play bad. They had a bad, undisciplined period. That's not a team you can make those mistakes again. I know Corey Perry plays on the edge. I know Evander Kane plays on the edge, but you got to know better there. You got to play better. You can't make those mistakes against a team like Dallas that has, especially now with Heiskanen back, has, everybody's got strong power plays at this point, except for Carolina. But, the other 3 teams, good power plays.
Yeah, those are veteran players. They know better, right? Like, what you can do and what you can't do. So it's ill-advised, it's ill timing. And those are easy calls too. They're sticks to the face, man. They're not, you know what I mean? Like, they're not hard to miss. Once you make contact with the guy's face, it's coming. So poor timing as well. Just the whole thing, not great for Edmonton. But I do agree with you. If once they go home, Dallas on the road hasn't been fantastic. It's not the worst in the world. Jake Ottinger's splits were not great during the regular season on the road. So there is a chance for them to at least get out and get McDavid and Draisaitl some favorable matchups. I think as we go, if they go home down 2-0, I think we see a lot more of McDavid, Draisaitl, and then plug whatever name you want there to generate something. Like Zach Hyman is probably the best bet to be there. He had 10 hits yesterday. And I mean, this is a guy who scored over 50 goals once upon a time. Whether you believe he is that type of player, it's neither here nor there. But yes, the physicality is important, but I believe that if you're throwing hits, it means you don't have the puck on your stick. And that is right. You can't throw a hit with the puck on your stick. So that means you're not generating offense, you're not generating plays, you're not, creating scoring chances. So I'd like to see Hyman, go back to the front of that paint, go where he scored every single goal last year. Just go straight to the front of the paint, and then let your 2 best players in the world then just find you. But I think Edmonton, like I said, if they go home and they're down, those 2 big boys are going to play together. And if you can get any type of favorable matchup for them, Dallas, yes, they do have a ton of depth, yes, but there's some young kids in that lineup that you can maybe try to exploit. Those pairings, those bottom pairings, there is some ability to exploit there, but you got to get the matchups.
So Zach Hyman had 59 hits in 70-something games in the regular season. In the playoffs, he's got 90 hits in 12 games. So, I mean, listen, come playoff time, you got to find your role. You're not scoring, you find other ways to contribute. Absolutely. But you have other guys on the roster that can do that kind of stuff for you. We just mentioned Kane and Perry being them. But yeah, like Hyman getting back to the front of the net and maybe creating traffic, giving Miro Heiskanen and Asa Lindells of the world something to deal with and have to move. Maybe that's the way to get going again and free up some other guys with Edmonton. But yeah, I think that, looking at game 2 here, I like the Stars. I like the under, but we'll see how that goes for game 3. What are your leans here for game 2?
I definitely like the Stars. I took the Stars money line and I was crying in bed as I was going, just being like, man, here come the Oilers again. And then I was really happy like 10 minutes into the third because I was like, oh my God, is this going to happen? I do think the under is probably a better bet here. I know it went over, but I can't imagine either team going like being up in the third and then just imploding the same way the Oilers did. I think they learn from that. They play better. They lock things down. And Dallas, once they get the lead, I feel like that's it. You know what I mean? Like they're not going to give it up. So I would also probably go with the under here. 6.5 seems like a pretty high number. I think maybe that line moves a little bit downward. So I would probably grab it earlier rather than later.
I'll say this. Another reason why I'm on the under here is, so it's 3-1 before, okay, fine, they get that power play goal, 3-2. Both scenarios, a team's going to clamp down. Maybe they don't get that goal. Maybe they get an empty netter. It's 4-2. Still clearing the under. I don't think you're going to have a collapse. I don't think you're going to have an offensive surge late in the game like that. Like we were anticipating for game 2 tonight. I think you're going to get a similar kind of game in terms of focusing more on their own end. Listen, I'm not trusting Stu Skinner to steal a game. So you have to, make sure you buckle down around him and make sure he's all set too. Like you said, it's either perfection or garbage with him. So, and I'm not going to, trust that he's going to go and create perfection for him. So they're leaning towards the under for this one and Dallas money line. So there we go. And we've been talking Conn Smythe odds, each week, and it's getting time's running out to bet on them because once you get to the Stanley Cup Finals, it's lose a lot of your value there. So taking a look at what we got here at some of these guys here. Mikko Rantanen currently the odds on favorite at plus 350, McDavid plus 500 next. And you see the names on the left there, Bobrovsky, Anderson, Ottinger. 3 goalies there, bing, bang, bang. You look on the right side, Stuart Skinner all the way at 200-1. So they are not putting much faith in him being the reason Edmonton wins the Stanley Cup, and rightfully so. And you start to get some of the longer odds there. In terms of somebody that's, we'll say not in that top 5, who are you looking at as a potential Conn Smythe candidate?
Long shot here, of course. So I'll stay on the right side, but the only player with more goals than Andrei Svechnikov is Mikko Rantanen. That's the only guy who with more goals. So Svechnikov is a player who can do many things, right? He can shoot the puck, yes. He can drive the play. He can throw his weight around. He's a pretty complete player. And yes, Sebastian Aho is there. Yes, he's going to drive the play. Yes, you got Seth Jarvis, stuff like that. But I feel like hockey is still about scoring goals, and Svechnikov can do that. So if Carolina makes it to where they need to be, I think he is part of it. So if you believe the Carolina Hurricanes win the Stanley Cup, 45-1 seems like a good sprinkle there. I think that's very, very, very fair. If I'm going to go with a little bit right on the left side here, obviously, I think Connor McDavid at 500 kind of seems where it should be. Leon Draisaitl at 14-1 seems a little bit like that's a significant gap between his teammate, and I think up till this point, Draisaitl's had a better, he's had a better postseason. So I think that's a little bit of not free money, but it's a good one. And then I guess if you want to take a goalie, right? I mean, Sergei Bobrovsky at plus 550. It was a rough start for him. Let's not get it twisted, but he's really, he's battled back. He is the backbone of that team. They go as far as he goes. So if they do repeat, probably a good candidate to pick up the Conn Smythe.
If I'm going to pick a goalie, I would probably go with Ottinger. Yes, Rantanen is, clearly there's a reason why he's the favorite, but I think as the playoffs go on, you're going to get more contributions from throughout the Dallas lineup as teams try to key in on Rantanen more, try to beat him up a little bit, slow him down. So I think Ottinger is just a guy that's going to be the consistent, maybe if he's not the top performer, he's the second or third best performer for Dallas each game. He's going to steal a game or two at some point. So, I mean, that's the guy I'd go with Dallas. You saw the other night, Tyler Seguin had a beautiful goal there. He's been, you're going to get a balanced effort through Dallas. Yes, Rantanen's going to be the straw that stirs the drink on that finished top line, but I think there's other guys on Dallas that are going to contribute enough to balance that scale. If I'm going with somebody a little bit lower on the left column there, yeah, Matthew Tkachuk's the easy answer with the Panthers, but man, Brad Marchand, wouldn't that be so like that? I could see that happening too for the Panthers if they get there. My argument for Carolina would be Aho, because I mean he's kind of like the well-rounded guy over Svechnikov. So with a team like Carolina, if it's not going to go to the goaltender, I don't think it's going to go to somebody on the blue line like Jacob Slavin at 100-1. Like, no thanks. So yeah, I think if I'm taking somebody from Carolina, it's Aho. If I have to pick somebody from the right-hand side, I mean, if Miro Heiskanen, if I'm going to pick a defenseman from any of the teams at this point, he's going to just prove his value more and more as the series wear on. If Dallas goes all the way, I know 150-1 is an extreme long shot, but if any defenseman's going to walk away with it, that would be the guy that I would pick more so than anybody on Florida or, any of the other squad, Bouchard or anybody like that.
I don't know. I guess I would have a good, I don't disagree with Jake Ottinger. The problem is you have to, even if you get balanced scoring from everybody else, like Mikko Rantanen is a big reason why his team is already here. So now, even if he doesn't go crazy towards the end, right, Conn Smythe is awarded based on, the best player in the playoffs. So we forget that the first 3 rounds have some meaning for it. So I just feel like it would be hard. It would have to be a Jake Ottinger, like a performance of a lifetime in that final series for him to outclass Mikko Rantanen. I just don't feel like anybody's going to be able to do that. Sam Bennett, future Toronto Maple Leaf second line center right there, seems like he's in a good spot to just, add a Conn Smythe before you hit free agency. That screams about, that adds what, at least an extra $2 million onto your 7 for, 9-year deals, $9 million, 7 years. It sounds right up the alley of what the Toronto Maple Leafs would do. So if you're not going to give it to one of the big boys, right? Sam Bennett he's been part of this playoffs in every sense, right? Whether it's, his questionable contact with goalies or, finding the score sheet. We know what he brings both sides of the puck.
We'll say he's contributing in all 200 feet of the rink.
He's not a wish.com or a Temu.com version of like Sasha Barkov, but I would say I don't know, how can I put this? Like a kind of like a Lexus to kind of like Honda kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like it's close enough. It makes sense.
It's a Toyota if we're going to be accurate. Yes, I get what you're saying.
Sam Bennett's the Toyota. It's not a bad thing. It's just not a Lexus.
Yeah, it's the more affordable version. Well, we'll see. If he wins a Conn Smythe, he may not be that affordable. Because that will certainly jack the price up, even if you want to point to, he doesn't score a ton of goals or something like that. Yeah, well, different story. The other argument I'll make for Ottinger, because he's going to play the Panthers or the Hurricanes, right? If it's a Hurricanes-Stars series, it's going to be low scoring. Goaltending's going to matter, and I think Dallas prevails. If they play the Panthers, he's probably going to have to steal a game from the defending champs at some point. So that would be my argument for Ottinger over one of the skaters from the Stars. But I do like, if it's not Rantanen or Ottinger, Miro Heiskanen is another long way to go there. I like. So there we go. A little Conn Smythe odds. And, we're cruising here 30 minutes in. We've given you, picks for tonight's game, picks for tomorrow's game, series futures, all that good stuff. But it's time to talk about Mitch Marner here. And we know, what's I found revealing too is, and this is from covers.com. So, it's not, the most reputable of books in terms of being reliable. Some of the stuff could be made up. But nonetheless, looking at where Marner might be getting on a runway out of to next, you don't see the Maple Leaf logo up there. So him returning, I understand that, maybe there was a small glimpse. That's not happening. They can't afford to spend the money on Marner. And there you look at the favorites. Chicago at plus 300, Philly at plus 400, Pittsburgh at plus 500, the Mammoth. That's the first time we're seeing their logo on this show. plus 600, Hurricanes at plus 800. Then you get into the Red Wings at 10-1, Rangers at 10-1, Ducks at 14-1, Minnesota 18-1, Nashville 20-1. I can't imagine they're going to go out and spend more money after what happened last year, but you never know. Montreal 20-1, which I know that gets you a little excited to potentially have Marner in the mix there. And Colorado at 22-1. Dallas was also listed at 25-1. I just don't see how they make that work, especially with what they just did with Rantanen. So I did not choose to. I kept it to a nice even 12 instead of 13 numbers there. So looking at that on the screen here, let's talk about the Blackhawks first, because yeah, fine, it makes sense. Like the big thing in Chicago this year, Bedard was unhappy. He had nobody to work with. Okay, great. Marner on Bedard's wing. Now you maybe have something cooking there. What do you think about that potential fit, or is that just too obvious?
Man, I don't know why. If I'm Mitch Marner, I don't know why I want to go to any of those dog water teams, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I'll put the Philadelphia Flyers in that category. I'll put the Pittsburgh Penguins in that category. I most certainly will put the Detroit Red Wings in that category, because I mean, if we're talking about plans that haven't worked, right? Why would you go from one plan to another one that doesn't work, right? So here's a couple of things, right? First off, you either target, like Mitch Marner's got two things he wants to decide. Like, do I want to go get bang, like my buck here, back the Brinks truck up, just put all the money in there and then, head out? Because if so, I mean, Chicago and Philadelphia, I'll throw Anaheim in there. These are teams that need to get to the cap floor, let alone, the cap ceiling. They have to get to the floor, right? And at some point you got to do. I can't take Carolina seriously. I don't think they want to add a player of his like a player like him to that roster. I think maybe they're missing something, but they've gone out. They've added those high profile players. A lot of them don't want to be there in Carolina. So I don't know why Mitch would go here. I know the disrespect here with not having Toronto is one thing. And listen, as much as I love to bash Mitch Marner because he's a Leaf, like he wasn't the problem in Toronto. This is the problem in Toronto remains their blue line. Like I don't know what pair of glasses some Leaf fans need on, but it's not. I get Mitch Marner's turnover is bad, and I get that he's been in the league a minute now. You know what I mean? So those are mistakes that you should not be making. But giving up 100-point player, and then, like, how are you going to replace that? I know, like, Matthew Nye seems like the new guy, and there's all these types of people writing him blank checks, and you're like, great, we're going to make the same mistake, right, by just writing this kid another fat check, and then if that doesn't work out, so be it. But, I mean, there's some teams here that we haven't even considered. One being the Tampa Bay Lightning. I don't know. Again, I don't know how we make money work, but the good thing is I don't have to worry about that. That's somebody else that has to worry about it. Like, we're running out of states that don't have state tax, right? Because he's not going to Nashville. He's definitely not going to, like you said, Dallas, because I don't know how they make any of that money work, right? The problem is I don't know if Mitch Marner is the superstar that you need, right? Like I feel like he's got to be a complementary piece.
He's got to be Robin. He can't be the Batman.
And it's a lot to then say, like, you can't go to open market and be like, hey man, I want $13-14 million to be a side piece, right? Like that then you're like, oh no, you know what I mean? Like, if I'm giving you that money, I need you to be a leader, right? I need you to be that guy, right? When stuff is not going well, you take over and you do what you need to do. And like, he had a decent playoff run. Again, we throw rocks at him for all the reasons needed. He still had what? He had 13 points. It's not terrible. The 2 goals is what it is. The problem is when you needed him the most, that's when it didn't show. But he's not the only body there.
He's not the only person you can apply that to.
He's the only one who's getting the maximum amount of criticism for it. You know what I mean? Like, nobody's criticizing John Tavares because nobody's like, he's not there, or he's got to have to take a lot less money to return. I see some people throwing rocks at Willie Nylander. I think he was the best player of that core 4. At different moments, he was the guy. And then Austin Matthews was like, he's not going anywhere, right? Like, that's Toronto's love child. So, and then, like, we're way too far out of it anyways. But there's, like, the conspiracy theories are already deep, where you let Marner walk. You let Tavares walk. You don't spend that money, and then you throw a blank check as if Connor McDavid is going to leave Edmonton so he can join this, this show over here, right?
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
To me, there's two spots, right? Like New York has the appeal is there, and if the Rangers are serious about being a team that competes, because you did sign, Igor to a boatload of money, right? You still have commitments up front. Like he's basically a younger version of Panarin, I guess. If that's what you want, if you don't want to go one way with him, you can go the other way with Marner. But that maybe makes the most sense. If not, I feel like he returns to Toronto. Maybe he'll take 12 and a half, which we can either agree or disagree if that's too much money or whatnot. But the extra year kind of plays into that as well, right? Like that there's getting an extra year means something to players, right? That's why we see them, trade and then to be able to sign those deals. So I won't throw Toronto out of the woods just yet, because like, what are you going to replace them with? This free agent core is not great. And if you let him walk and you don't replace him, and let's say you don't bring back like John Tavares, you have lost 50% of that core four, and it is not getting better next year. You know what I mean? So you're not going to waste a year for the hope of something that does not exist.
So going through the list here again, like you said, I'm taking Philly off the list. I'm taking Pittsburgh off the list. I'm taking Detroit off the list. Taking Anaheim off the list. I'm taking Nashville off the list. So that's 5 teams gone. Montreal, don't get me wrong, I think that would be really intriguing, being coached by another undersized winger, maybe Martin St. Louis gets another, element out of Marner somehow. I just don't think that's where Montreal necessarily should be spending the money. So, they could do that, but I'm not ready to do it there. Colorado, what? That doesn't sound like they're going to bring back Brock Nelson here. I mean, they need more help down the middle than they do on the wing, although they could use a little bit of help a wing there. I think that would be too rich for them. I don't think they're going to go there. Looking at a team like Minnesota, we haven't talked about them yet. That would be intriguing if they really want to make a move and establish themselves as like, hey, we want to be just as good as Dallas and Winnipeg and whoever Colorado brings in. That would be intriguing. I don't see him going there. Utah, if they wanted to make their first big splash, is like, hey, we're not the Coyotes. We actually want to start adding there. He would be a nice fit there. And Utah certainly got a young group there with Keller, Cooley, Gunther. You bring him in the mix, but again, doesn't really bring any size. Carolina, I think, Stankoven is definitely earning his time there, but they could use a little more of that. But I don't think, again, I don't know if they want to spend that money for him. So now we're eliminating teams. If he wants to go play with Bedard and be his guy, great. Then do that. Then go suffer for the first few years of that contract until it pays off if he has that kind of patience. Running out of teams on the list, like you said, I'm not saying this because I'm a Ranger fan, but there are a lot of ways that makes sense. Okay, Panarin plays on the left side. You have Marner on the other top line on the right side. You brought in JT Miller, so you're still saying, hey, we're trying to get back in the mix next year. We know the Metropolitan Division, Carolina, Washington Devils, Columbus kind of threw their hat in the ring. Let's see if they do it again in year 2 to get over the hump and back in the playoffs. The Rangers could very easily establish themselves as one of the top teams in that division with somebody like Marner there. I mean, Kreider, he's probably gone. They have to fill that hole to a degree. So, yeah, I mean, listen, if you're going to keep Zibanejad as a center and go Trocheck, Miller, Zibanejad, then, yeah, you need to add another presence on the wing, which is something they've been trying to do for a while and haven't been able to do it. I know Gabe Perreault got called up at the end of the season. They didn't really utilize him properly. Lafreniere, it's going to be a put-up or shut-up season for this guy. So, maybe Marner gets them going, and then everybody kind of falls into pegs on the right. If Marner's going to be on your top line, then maybe Lafreniere goes to your second line, or Perreault, or you figure it out. But, yeah, I think the Rangers make a ton of sense for Marner if they can get it done.
2 teams not on this list that I think at least the conversation can be had depending on how this goes. If he's looking for money, right, which, again, he is a hockey player. So, and nothing wrong with that. He's allowed, go get your bag. You're only a hockey player for a short period of time. The Columbus Blue Jackets. I know nobody wants to go to Columbus. I understand that. But maybe this team, like, they were right there, right? And if the step is coming, if they believe that they are closer to like they're there, they're ready to compete kind of thing, they're not bad. They probably need a goalie, right? But their offensive group is kind of fun, kind of young, kind of fun. Dean Evason got the most out of that group. If you want to go there and be a player that can, really contribute, there's a spot. Columbus has a ton of money as well. So if they want to commit to that, right? And I know some players didn't want to go there in the past, but hey, Johnny Gaudreau went there once, and maybe that opens the door for other players to say, okay, I will come this way. The second team is the San Jose Sharks. If you're looking for money, I mean, listen, as of today, to the good folks over at Cap Wages, the Sharks have $56 million committed to their payroll. 56. They're the only team that's not at the floor today. So and there's only more money that's going to come off the books. You understand? So if you want to throw money at somebody, that's a pretty good way to go. You know what I mean? You can give him a boatload of money, right? You can make an Erik Karlsson move, kind of, which you shouldn't, but let's say they want to, and say, hey, man, come here. The beach is nice. You get away from all that media scrutiny, all that garbage. Nobody really cares here. Come out, hang out, Macklin Celebrini, and then you got, Will Smith, Tyler Foley's already there doing kind of thing. You got some guys as well. Like it's fun. The vibes are there. They're probably a few seasons out from being competitive, but so are the Blackhawks. So do I want to go to Chicago and live that life, or do I want to go to San Jose and live that life instead? Right?
I mean, San Jose has already established good vibes. I mean, listen, Will Smith, if you want to, I'm not going to say an undersized winger, but he could definitely add a little to his frame. So, I mean, you bring a guy like Marner in, like you said, not as, if he thinks, compared to the media scrutiny he has now, he's going to be able to go to Rayleigh's or Safeway and buy his groceries every week, and he might get recognized. Might. Yeah. Like, that's what it's. So if you're going to take a situation where, like, okay, I'm going to get the bag, go to a team that's on the rise, and yeah, I might not make the playoffs for the next couple of years, but I'm going to have some fun. San Jose is the better option than Chicago for that, because yeah, the Chicago Blackhawks media scrutiny is not the Maple Leafs, but they care about the Blackhawks in Chicago. They're not the Cubs, they're not the Bears, but the Bulls have been a bottom echelon team for a while. Blackhawks are probably right there. Nobody cares about the White Sox and their atrociousness. That's only worse than the only team worse than them is the Rockies. So yeah, I think San Jose is a team not on that list, and I've mentioned that previous times here. We've talked about Marner for a lot of reasons. That would be a good one. You mentioned Tampa as a contending team not on the list. That would make sense. Earlier today on Rip and Riff, Jared Moore said, "How about Vegas?" That was a team. Yes, they got to figure out the cap, but they always find a way.
They always do, right? So.
And that was a team that when they were talking about, trading him, before the season, that was a link there. You look down the wing for them. Like, yeah, they have Eichel, they have Hurdle, they have Karlsson, but like Olofsson, Howden on the wing. Dorofeev has had a decent year. Riley Smith, like a guy like Marner would be an excellent fit in a team. And all of a sudden now Vegas is very much, okay, you worry about Edmonton being at the top of the division. The Kings are on the rise. Now Vegas has basically reestablished themselves as the top team in the conference. Him and Eichel together. Whew.
Look, if there's two teams that can circumvent the cap, it's Vegas and it's Tampa Bay. And that's not saying it as a mean. Like that's not me being mean to them. That is, listen, they got guys who know how to get around it. If they can make it work, by all means. But I feel like there are other teams that he could go to if he just wants to get paid, which again, he probably does. Then there are lots of places he can go and get paid and, have a good time. If he wants to win, look, Toronto Maple Leafs made it out of the first round. The problem is his play a little bit, but I don't believe many teams are going to shy away from him for that. It's going to be a question of how much money do you want to spend. You're going to have to give him 7 years, right? It's a question of trying to fit it under the cap. A lot of teams know that the cap's going up anyways. So I feel like that's like you're getting a little bit of extra money. You're not sure what to do. So you just order Uber Eats and you don't care that it's a $4.99 delivery charge. You're just like, whatever, I got extra money, I'll spend it, right? And that's how those teams continue to be terrible for years to come. But I mean, again, I still believe that if there is a part of him, if he wants to win, he can do that in Toronto but I just don't. I feel like that relationship is just so broken from just everything that he's had to deal with. But again, it's not only him, man. And listen, I'm not crying. I'm not crying for the Leafs, right? But I just don't think it's all on him. And then if he leaves, well, Leafs Nation can go out and scapegoat, Willie Nylander, or maybe one day they'll turn on, their boy Austin.
And the other thing too, and we keep talking about the media scrutiny in Toronto, you can't undervalue the fact that that might be one of his things. Like, I want to go somewhere, San Jose or Utah, or, if you want to talk about contending teams like Carolina, where like, I don't have to deal with that fishbowl. And like, some people be like, oh, he just can't handle it. No, maybe sometimes when you've been in an extreme version of something like that, the one thing you want is to go polar opposite. I want to go. That happened to Tyler Seguin. His career turned out just fine. Like, yeah, maybe he's still waiting for that ring and his name on the cup in Dallas to get his name on the cup at least. But he didn't want to play in that kind of scrutiny in Boston, because Boston's one of the few U.S. cities where it is similar to a Canadian market in terms of the attention on a hockey team. He didn't want to deal with that, and there's nothing wrong. It doesn't mean he's not tough. Doesn't mean he doesn't want to be bothered. And you know what? If you're good enough to play a professional sport at that level, you can make that decision, and it's worked out just fine for him. Like I said, he hasn't won in Dallas yet. Maybe this is the year he wins in Dallas. But him and Jamie Benn for being the core two for that franchise for a long time has not been a bad move.
Yeah, like again,
and he's happy
there are good representations of smaller market teams, I guess you want to call them that. I mean, I wouldn't consider Dallas, Carolina, and Sunrise these like big hockey markets, right? I would consider them maybe medium markets, right? I'll throw it's not like Edmonton's a big market per se in total of hockey, but in Canada, like it's magnified.
But it's hockey, not it's the
right.
Oilers. They don't care. It's the Oilers and the Eskimos. It's all it is.
Yeah. Like, listen, I mean, look, they even Connor McDavid gets kind of pissy with the media, and he's the best player in the world. So, if I'm Mitch Marner, listen, pressure makes diamonds. Some players are, zirconium, whatever it is, that fake diamond. Maybe that's what he is, and that's nothing wrong with that. That's not everybody wants to go to work and have their whole life criticized. So it will be interesting to see where he ends up. I just hope it's not in a Habs uniform, man. I don't listen. Not today, Chief. Not let's spend our money somewhere else. I would like Montreal to go out and get a high price forward, kind of somebody to help scoring, but I don't need not Mitchie. Thanks, boy.
Edmonton Elks, excuse me. They've been a name change a couple of years. Don't stay on top of the CFL down here in my neck of the woods as much. If I was, it would be Saskatchewan. I love the green of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, so that would be my team if I had to pick one. Nonetheless, I'm very, very intrigued by that Minnesota 18-1. Because, I mean, they're a below the radar team, and I get it. You're basically signing up to have to deal with Dallas, Winnipeg, and Colorado, so that's not ideal. But, I mean, Kaprizov on one line, Marner on another.
It would be great. The problem is Minnesota has no money because they're still paying the cap the cap buyouts from Suter and
Doesn't that come off soon, though? I thought they finally get relief from that soon.
I don't think it's this summer. I think it's next one. I think they're tied for a minute.
And yeah, the Rangers, like you pointed out earlier, like if the Rangers are like, hey, we're going to really make one last, attempt with this group here. But again, the question being asked in the chat here, we got a couple of people checking in. State of Survival from earlier. He's got an Oilers-Panthers rematch at Rivera 86. Still very possible here. We'll see how game 2 goes tomorrow night. We'll see what the Panthers do in game 2 tonight in Carolina and Raleigh. Back to Marek here. Does this mean Toronto need to rebuild now that the Shanahan era is over? I mean, rebuild may be a strong word, but retool might be the more appropriate one there. And he also wants to know what money would Marner go for. So let's start with the retool question first.
They got to change. They have to change the identity of that team, right? Like that's the demons cannot be exercised from that team there. That just can't do it. They got to make their blue line better, man. I know we keep talking about these, the additions of Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Small Benoit and and Brandon Carlo, and that look, these are great third pairing guys. They're great third pairing guys
on championship teams.
Yes, they're not the guys, man. You need puck moving defensemen that have a ton of that have upside skill and talent. Toronto's production from the blue line was miserable. It was not good this year. And then you look at their blue line and go, well, that makes sense. Yeah, that's actually on point. Why would I expect anything different? They don't have a lot of high-end skill on the blue line. And so they need to go out and find somebody who can do that. Easier said than done. I get that. But with all that extra money that they got, go out and find somebody who can move the puck on the blue line, make your team a lot better. That would be, that would be my focus. I think in goal, maybe the series is different if Anthony Stolar is playing. Nothing against Joseph Woll, but I mean, he wasn't Anthony Stolar. It's kind of it. Maybe it'd be a good time to let, some other guys in that lineup. Just to, Max Domi taking, poor timed penalties, getting baited into whatever Matthew Tkachuk was doing. It's like this team needs upside, right? They need guys who can skate. They need guys who can, get a little bit greasy, get a little bit dirty. And then you got to expect more from your best players, right? Look, it took Alex Ovechkin a minute to understand, right? Alex Ovechkin, by the way, the Capitals only made it past the first round once in the last 20 years. The only problem is when they did, they made it count. So he's got a ring on his finger. That's all that matters. But you saw the year that he bought into it, what it looked like. And that's what you need from the rest of them, right? I know everybody wants to score goals, but that's not how you win in the playoffs. You got to buy into the system. You got to buy into what you have to do. You have to be smarter. You have to make better choices. Toronto's got to go out and find some guys who are smarter.
Problem is, it's not a great unrestricted free agent defenseman market there. I mean, Burns is probably walking off into the sunset, and get Dmitry Orlov, Aaron Ekblad, Ivan Provorov, Jeff Petrie, Vladislav Gavrikov, like Brian Lindgren. Like these are some of the Cody Ceci. Like again, no true. Now, if you want to go out and maybe target an RFA like a Noah Dobson, Evan Bouchard, that's not happening. Keandre Miller, I don't know if that's the best idea to put him in Toronto. The way New York's been on top of him, won't be able. So Bowen Byram, if the Sabres wanted to do something in division, I don't think they would. I mean, maybe Shanahan's talking about there's been rumors that maybe he takes over the Islanders in a similar role. Maybe he makes something happen for Dobson. I don't know. That's the problem. Is yes, they need to upgrade the blue line, but they're going to have to do it via trade because there's really no free agent they can go out and get.
Cale Makar is a free agent next year, I hear. Instead of going out and dreaming of things that are impossible. I'm not saying it's possible for Cale Makar, but if I'm going to dump a boatload of money somewhere, maybe a defenseman who scores a bunch of goals and who possesses the puck and has above average metrics, I don't know. Listen, if I was going to spend $12 million, I mean, Cale Makar might be a guy I'd spend it on.
All right, so the first question was Mitch Marner. What does he ultimately go for? What is a number that Marner will go for? I mean, to me, he's not going. If he wants to take a discount, maybe 11.5, but I think he's going to get 12.5 easily. I'd say 12.5 is what he ends up going.
I can't imagine him getting less than what Mikko Rantanen got. I got to imagine he's pushing like 13. Like he's a 100-point player during the regular season, and there are not many of those guys.
Well,
so
if Rantanen's comparable, Rantanen's already got his name on the cup. He's a bigger player.
You're right.
He's increasing his stock. So I mean, if you're going to try, that could actually work against you if you're trying to use Rantanen as your yardstick.
You might, but he is still right. Something right. Agents put this in the same way as I do when I'm trying to get something to go only my way. It's he's a player who produces in the regular season, right? He's an elite passer. He can find, he can make everybody on his line better. Listen, we saw what he did with Team Canada. Some of you forget, but that pass to Sam Bennett came from Mitch Marner's stick. And that overtime goal, by the way, Connor McDavid doesn't bury it without the pass from Mitchie. So he can play. He can play. Just for whatever reason in Toronto, it just doesn't work. So I think he probably goes upwards of 13. It would be a mistake from somebody, but I'm excited to see which team does it, though.
So the cap goes up to $95.5 million this year from $88 this year. Yeah. You talked about Makar and what you would pay. So let's assume next year the cap, let's make it a nice round number. It goes up to $100 million. It goes up $4.5 million.
Yeah.
What is the number that Cale Makar goes for on the open market? Could he get $15 million?
He's got to be the high. To me, he's the highest paid defenseman. He could,
yeah. It got to. I wouldn't even take an offer under 14. If you do anything under 14, I'm not even responding.
I feel like there's a reason why. I don't think he gets the market, obviously, but there's a reason that the Mikko Rantanen fiasco ended the way that it did, and it's probably because they felt like they needed to make sure they had money to be able to give it to Cale Makar. Cale Makar is a is a beast, man, on all ends of it. He can contribute offensively. He's good defensively. Excellent skater. I mean, like that's a guy I'd back the truck up for. Be like, hey man, here's the check, put a number on it, and then we go to the bank and we say, okay, it's kind of what it is, right? Kind of what it is. But I don't think he's leaving Colorado. He's way too valuable to that team. They'll give him whatever he needs, man.
I mean, unless Colorado absolutely decided, you know what, we're blowing it up, which I don't think they're going to. I don't think McKinnon might be like, all right, trade my ass if that's the direction we're going. Get me out of here. So
I can't imagine their ability now with Gabe Landeskog being back as well. We'll see how like whatever his health can give him, right? But I don't think they're not canning this.
No, I agree. Them losing Rantanen is entirely tied to making sure they have enough to make sure they can cover Makar and maybe get him at a slight hometown discount because Makar knows if he gets to, but maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's happy in Colorado. Maybe that's where he wants to live for the next 20, 30 years. That comes into play too. Tell us where you think people are going. totalhockeynow@gmail.com. You can also always give us a shout on Twitter at Pucking Thoughts, at FuzzyChris91, and of course our guy at Ant Rivera 86, who so either Chris and I are going to be right about the Stanley Cup, or Ant's probably going to be right. Now, yes, there's possibilities that aren't for us. Ant's got a rematch. We've got Hurricanes, Stars. Yes, you can get Hurricanes-Oilers, which I don't know how much I'd love that rematch of the 2006 Stanley Cup that barely anybody remembers outside of those two markets. Or you could get maybe like a Florida-Dallas, which I think would be a really good series too.
I remember the Hurricanes won, but for all the wrong reasons. So
yeah,
that was the year that Cam Ward took over. I forget who started the first two, but Cam Ward took over in Game 3. Saku takes the stick in the eye, lose him for the series. Everything changes. Cam Ward takes over. And we never look back. So, the scars are there. They heal, but, as they say in French, je me souviens, right? It's never gone.
Never gone. Who was the guy? I forget. It was so long ago. Who was the goalie? He took Marty Gerber.
That sounds right. I couldn't tell you who it was.
He took over mid-season for Gerber, and then that was it. Edmonton also had their goaltending because they had Rolison, but Rolison got hurt, and I believe UC Markkinen ended up being the goaltender for them at one point, if I recall correctly. They didn't have Rolison, and that was pretty much the beginning of the end for the Oilers. There was a great 7-game series. It gets forgotten, but it was a good series. I remember covering. That was my first year working in the Sirius satellite sports newsroom. Worked that night, actually.
I was not old enough yet.
There you go. There we go. Maybe we get that as a rematch, but we're hoping for little Stars Hurricanes, at least for these two faces here. What do we got coming up on the Slapshot podcasts this week?
Next week, we'll take a little dive into these teams, see how they're doing, see if any of the other news is broken, see if anybody else has found a job. There's a lot of head coaching spots that are still need to be filled out. So we'll do the tour of that, see what's going on. A little bit of puck doku, it's a good time to torture me.
It is. It's not see, that's the one double-edged sword. You get this deep into the playoffs. No, it's conference finals hockey. It's great hockey, but the other night was the last night of doubleheader hockey, and that was it. Now it's just one game a night. That's it. That's all we get, and they're all going to be pretty much 8:00 Eastern starts the rest of the way. So.
The 8:00 in the East needs to end, Gary.
That'll never end. I'm
falling asleep at that hour, bud. Come on.
See, it's ideal for me because then I can I'll miss like a chunk of the game if like it's my night to do bath or bed or whatever. But that's an ideal window for me because I can go pick up my daughter, be home in time for puck drop easily. Yeah, I love the 5:00 puck.
I don't care about the West Coast. I could care less.
Eric, our Puckdoku King is right there to my right. My left.
I wish.
See how that goes. A little Puckdoku there on the Slapshot podcast. Always fun. Ant's not here, but definitely could talk a little Mets Subway to Shea podcast there. Check it out at Subway to Shea. Like I said, new episode of Rip and Riff dropped earlier today. We talked about the Knicks choking against the Pacers, which was worse than the Oilers collapse against the Stars. And then also I talk about the Giants being disingenuous frauds with the Bay Area series over the weekend with the Athletics. They were like, oh, it's good to have it back. They kind of like tried to be like the always 415-510 using the area codes. It's like, no. you could have helped the Athletics stay, and you turned a blind eye. So don't pretend like you missed them. Because when you could have given them the South Bay territorial rights, you decided, no, we're not going to do that, even though they gave them to you 20, 30 years ago. That's fine. More about that on Ripping Her, the hockey podcast here. Not going to get too crazy, but it is annoying. I hate when that team's linking. Anyway, go check it out if you want the full rant. For F Fuzzy Chris 91, I'm at Pucking Thoughts Adam Bernard. I'll be back with you next week. I don't know if we'll be in the Stanley Cup final preview mode yet, but we should be pretty deep in the series. Let's hope we're not in Stanley Cup final preview mode, because that'll mean the series was short. But back with you next week. Hopefully as a line instead of a defensive pairing with Ed Rivera 86. See you next week. Total Hockey Now.